All right, everybody, welcome in. It's that time of the month where it is the first Wednesday of the month, and it is HR Lunch Bunch brought to you by HR Answers. And we're like year 16, 18, something like that of doing this. So I have done a little informal welcome already to those who are joining us. And I was just about to say to them, if they're not familiar and this is their first time, my name is Deborah Jeffries, and I serve as the Vice President of the company here at HR Answers and have been kind of the official or unofficial host of HR Answers, HR Lunch Bunch for several years. But this developed out of one of our staff members having an idea with brown bag lunches and getting together and networking in a very informal but very in targeted, purposeful way. And when that little thing came along called the pandemic, we kind of moved to a virtual scenario. And then we had people from all over the state and out of state actually joining us. So we kind of kept it as a virtual kind of activity, and nobody has to drive, but people can still eat their lunch, which is just fine by us. We do encourage cameras to come on if you're not eating, and even if you are, or even if you're having a bad hair day. We don't care. What we care is about getting to know each other and networking and sharing information. So, again, if you've not been with us before, this is not really a class as much as it's opportunity to have a discussion, a conversation around certain topics. So, I encourage you to please ask questions, share what you're doing, how you're doing it inside your organizations, or even if you've done something and it didn't work out very well. So, this is an opportunity to share kind of those oopses or cautionary tales, but definitely share and learn from each other because, again, a discussion opportunity. You also can use the chat box, it's there for you. I always share and have that we are recording this. So again, I can appreciate if you don't want to be on camera or even in the chat box, that won't appear on the recording. But if you would like to use a direct message to me specifically, I'll help facilitate that. But I do have a guest here. I have Danielle Dinkelman. She's with AWC. I'll let her do her official welcome, but I will introduction as it were. But I will just let you know that Danielle and I have known each other for a couple of years. Very impressed with this woman. She brings a lot of knowledge and expertise to the conversation. Her title today is Three Pillars of a Wellness Culture and Why That Matters to Us. And in our one on one conversations and what her organizations bring to other organizations, truly, there is a lot to be had here. So I know she's definitely got a couple of key elements she wants to make us aware of. So with that said, I'm going to turn the conversation over to her. I've stopped my share. Please feel free, Danielle, to pick that up. You can do the formal introduction of yourself, but this is opportunity, everybody. This is someone you want to know. Miss Danielle, it is all yours, my friend.
Fantastic. Thank you for that kind introduction, Deborah. I'm going to get myself organized here so that you don't need to see everything here. Deborah, are you seeing my screen?
I do see your screen. I also see the,
Where's my presentation button?
right, exactly.
Boom. Okay, we're in business. As Deborah said, I am all here for relationships and conversation. So yes, if you are not driving and it is unsafe for you to open up your camera and join us in this Zoom room, I certainly value discussion and storytelling and sharing. And we are definitely going to do some intros. Actually, if everyone can unmute, I'm going to actually take some time to let everybody just share who's in the room, because maybe there's some opportunity for us to learn from each other, and to connect and maybe say, me too, I know what that's like. So if you'd like to introduce yourself in the chat to get that started, go ahead. But I really am here. I want this to feel more like a discussion and less like a workshop. So even though I'm sharing slides, please know that I want some engagement today. So I'll get us kicked off with my own introduction. As Deborah said, my company, ACW, or Advanced Corporate Wellness, I'm the co-founder and CEO. We've been in business for about 3 years now. And I love talking about all things employee wellness. And as you'll hear today, my passion is really looking at the individual inside of the organization. How can we help individuals be at their best so that they can show up to work at their best. We were just sharing, it's hard to do your best work when you're fighting the flu. And that there's a multitude of situations that lead us to that. And if we can empower people with resources and support, then we can have stronger organizations, which is what we're going to dive into today. This is my husband, my co-founder, and our services are basically making employee wellness coaching on an individual basis available as an employee benefit, primarily in small businesses. So we work with groups, if they have 2 or 3 employees, all the way up to 100 or 200. It's kind of the space that we play in. So I would love to go around the Zoom room here. If everyone could unmute and share your name, where you're calling in from, what organization or company are you with, and what's your role? I know we may have some amazing HR department of one type folks in this room, or maybe you have a full team around you. I don't know. So I'm just going to call you out, and if you're not able to, that's okay. But I see Mel first on my screen. Mel, would you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, hello, my name's Mel Miller. I'm from Consumers Power in Philomath, Oregon, and I am the engineering support supervisor.
Fantastic. Nice to meet you. Jennifer Bishop is next on my screen. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Jennifer, I am, sorry, myself and my manager have this on in the same room, so we're echoing. I'm Jennifer Bishop. I work at the Humane Society for Southwest Washington, and we're located in Vancouver, Washington, and I am the Talent Acquisition and Retention Coordinator. I'm a little bit new to my role, but I do have previous recruiting experience, so I'm excited to be here.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jennifer. Helen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Helen Faye Mays. I am the administrative assistant for the Nestucca Rural Fire Protection District out in Tillamook County at the coast. And I do some HR, but I kind of just do a little bit of everything as the only office employee here.
Yes, bless your heart, and thank you for what you do. That's incredible. Thanks, Helen Faye. Ashley, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Ashley Scott. I'm kind of in the same boat as Helen, like only office person, so get to wear all the hats. I also have our fire chief here. Just trying to learn what we can to build that wellness culture the best we can. We're working on putting together a more extensive gym for our crews and working through that process currently. And we were blessed to be able to go to a Struggle Well conference the past couple days, training, which is an amazing organization that, I mean, kind of started on the military side and is transitioning to first responders and really has a passion for doing the right thing for the folks we care about.
That is so cool. Ashley, my internet actually lagged a little bit. I missed what organization you're with. Would you say that again for me?
I'm with Philomath Fire and Rescue.
Bless your heart. Thank you for your service. That's excellent. Wonderful. Nice to meet you. All right. I've got Dee Dee next on my screen. If you're able, love to hear from you.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Dee Dee. I am in Portland at an insurance agency. I just work in a marketing admin type of space, and we are moving offices for the first time in like 50 years. And so when we move, I think we want to implement like a new wellness program, something fun and motivating, but fair, maybe competitive, rewarding. I don't know. So just wanted to hear some ideas.
I love all those words you threw out there. Fun, rewarding, competitive, fun but fair. And yeah, having some fun with that. What was your organization? Say again?
Leonard Adams Insurance.
I'm sorry, maybe you'll have to put it in the chat. Your microphone is just a little garbled a little bit.
It's
That's awesome, Dee.
An insurance company.
Brilliant, brilliant. Awesome. Well, thanks for being here. Okay, let's see who else. Have we heard from Ashley Scott yet? Now things are bumping around a little bit on my screen. Oh, we already heard from it. Okay, now that I see your face. Yep, we've got Ashley. Okay, I think I've got Morgan, Tasha, and then Russell. And then I think that's everybody. Can we go in that order? If you're able,
I don't know if you're able to hear me,
you can.
but I am the HR department for a company called HP Civil Incorporated. It's located in Almsville, and we are a heavy civil construction company.
Fantastic. Nice to meet you, Morgan. All right, Tasha and then Russell.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Tasha. I'm one of the HR generalists here for Bud Clary Auto Group. We're a family of dealerships out in Longview, Washington. And I have a group of, there's 4 of us now on the HR team. So I'm happy to hear what you all have to say today.
Cool. Nice to meet you, Tasha. All right, Russell, and then it looks like we've got a new person coming in, Angie. Maybe we'll ask her next. Go ahead, Russell.
Hi, I'm Russ McGraw. I also work for the Humane Society for Southwest Washington with Jen Bishop, and she's new on our team. We're excited because we have a HR of 3 this year, and we're excited about moving some of our wellness initiatives forward, and looking to get in some great ideas here. We just expanded up into Longview, so if it'd be nice to meet you, Tasha, when we head up there and get a chance to come down to the Humane Society and visit with us.
Great, we've got some neighbors. Nice to meet you, Russell. Wonderful. Okay, is there anyone that I missed? Did everybody get a chance? Looks like Angie might have hopped in and then hopped out, if I'm seeing everything right. All right, well, wonderful. I hope that just like helps warm up the room a little bit. Like I said, as I go through these slides, I do not want to get into just like speaker talk at you mode. So I'm going to try to ask some questions. I'm going to be brave, and I hope that you'll help me out by offering your perspective on some things. So we're going to start with this. Can your employees, when you think about your team, are they able to prioritize their personal well-being? You think about what's going on in your organization, you think about their workload. Are they able to do that? So this is a little bit of, might be a rhetorical question, but I'm curious. What's your read on this? Does anybody feel brave to share? Like, how is this feeling in your organization? And if yes, what's contributing to that? And if maybe not, what are some of the barriers? What are some of the obstacles you're running into?
From the fire department side, with us getting that gym squared away, we only have a few pieces of equipment, but daily our crews are doing some kind of PT to keep themselves ready to go. Also just getting that lactic acid out when the calls don't go as planned, or getting toned to a call and then it getting canceled before they get there. That adrenaline's still there, whether they get to use it or not. So they have the opportunity to do that when they're on shift, or if they're not on shift, they're welcome to come in, as well as we've opened it up to their families as well. And it probably will be more appealing once we have more than a couple rowing machines. So, I mean, they do battle on it, but it is what we have.
I love that. So and that's such an excellent example, Ashley. Thanks for sharing, like being able to provide the physical opportunity for that. And so you're really helping them check that box on that physical wellness, staying fit. But yeah, that adrenaline that builds up, if that doesn't have an outlet, being able to have that in the gym too, that's really speaking to their mental health. Excellent. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Anybody else? Any thoughts on this? How does this feel in your organization? Let's maybe get one more person. Or what obstacles do you notice of, like, what makes this hard? You can maybe even think for yourself. Mel?
It makes it hard for us right now because we are currently under construction. And we do have, we've been fortunate enough to have a space for a gym. So we have a really nice gym set up. That way, when people want to utilize it, they can utilize it during the day. If they want to go for a walk or whatever during their break, they can extend that from 15 minutes to 20 minutes because they're working out. Or, like I said, they can utilize it after work or before work. But right now, with us moving things around, it's kind of we've made shift a temporary spot. But because of that, it's kind of taken away from people wanting to utilize the smaller space. So we're kind of in limbo on what we had set up.
Totally. And I appreciate you bringing that up, because I'm sure you're not the only one in the room that it's like, well, things were feeling really good and then something changed, right? We face that in organizations all the time. So thanks for pointing that out. When we're going through transitions and changes, yeah, we've got to reassess how are we supporting our team in still taking care of themselves so they can bring their best selves to work. So thank you. Awesome. I love that. Like I said, even if you didn't share, I hope that you'll kind of think to yourself, okay, what could be some of the obstacles that our staff are facing? And when I asked that question of can they prioritize their personal well-being, I'm going to invite you to kind of really think about what does that mean to you when you think of well-being. Please don't just think of exercise, don't just think of mental health. Think about, their social health. Do they have a community that they belong to? Do they feel supported at home and in that community? Think about their financial health. Think about spiritual health. These are things that usually as employers, it's none of our business. And yet, if those things are getting out of hand on the personal side, it does inevitably come spiraling into the professional side eventually. I'm sure you've all had that experience where it's like, okay, there's some crisis or chaos going on the personal side, and now it's impacting us in the company. So if we can be aware of what kind of supports and resources we can put in place to help our team members, we can prevent some of those chaos and crises moments. When it comes down to the bottom line, this is really what we're trying to prevent is turnover, right? If things really get out of hand and someone is burning out and their mental health is not in a state that they can continue to work at their current role, they're going to leave the company, right? So when we're looking at bottom line business decisions and why would we want to invest in wellness initiatives, if you have leadership that they're just like, maybe they're a little old school, maybe they're a little crusty, they're like, I don't know, that wellness stuff sounds a little fluffy. Bring this up, share with them, how much does it cost when we have to replace an employee? And I share this with you, this formula. I find this incredibly valuable to help people really think through the impact when someone has to leave. We're not just saying, oh no, we have to pay the recruiters to replace that person. We've also got everything else that you see listed here. I feel like there's a gatekeeper in your company or there's obstacles administratively to taking initiative and taking action and investing in some wellness initiatives. I invite you to share something like this with those folks. I'm curious, how many people make it a habit, or do you have access to your turnover rate in your company? And how do you track that? Where do you get that data? Let's maybe share some best practices with each other in the room.
This is Russ at the Humane Society. We have it in our LMS, in our HRIS system. And so that works really well to at least track the numbers in and out. But furthermore, we've been able to utilize that data. It's one of the reasons why Jennifer's sitting in our, with us now is we recognize some of the things that we can do to get ahead of the game and really keep people engaged in their first 60 days to 90 days, 6 months of employment.
Totally, yeah, really looking at that onboarding process. How are we really wrapping this person in? And
yeah, well, I'm kind of looking at that as getting them from them to we as quickly as possible.
I love that.
So
I love that. Yeah, that's a great question to ask. And, we've got such a range in the room here, right? Folks that have a team in the HR department, folks that HR isn't even just their only job, they're also managing the entire office. I know we had some folks sharing that. So this might feel really heavy. Maybe you don't even have an HRIS system, depending on how small your company is. So just knowing how to keep tabs on this for your organization. If you don't, this is something I would highly recommend as like step one, because it will help you start to build a case to, again, come back to leadership and say, hey, what could the biggest impact things be for our team to really, you know, get ahead of this? Like Russell said, how can we be preventative about that unnecessary turnover? If we can just put a few systems, put a few initiatives in place to make a difference here. So thanks for sharing that, Russell. I appreciate it. All right, so here's some stats for you. On the low end, a salaried worker is going to cost $15,000 just to replace them, just to get them in their seat. That is expensive. Okay, and you can see from different entry level to mid-level to high-level positions, you can even just like roughly grab these percentages, jot these down, take a screenshot of this. I'm happy to share these slides. Deborah has them and can share them with you after today. But again, like as you're helping the leadership team make decisions of, you know, what's our ROI on really supporting and resourcing our team to prioritize well-being, preventing the turnover, the cost here is a very compelling conversation to have. So if we want to prevent turnover, we're talking about retention, we're talking about belonging, we're talking about our onboarding process, and we're talking about things like, you know, how does their workload feel? Do they feel supported and resourced in the organization so that they can go home and be done with work when they are done with work? This is a huge conversation, but I did want to share this article from CEO Magazine. I would love for you all to take a look at these 5 items, and are you seeing the desire in your workforce? Does this line up with what you're noticing, maybe with yourself and with your team members? What are they valuing? What are they appreciating that you're making available to them at work? So let's maybe hear 2 or 3 thoughts on this. I know we've got some activity in the chat. Deborah, if you want to monitor that and chime in with anything that that we want to share on the recording, if you want to do that for me, that would be awesome.
I am looking at the chat. The only thing that's come in so far, and just so you guys know, there's been messages, private messages back and forth. So if you don't have your chat box open, you might take a look at that. But Jennifer just kind of shared about having an EAP that provides free confidential coaching and counseling for employees and being able to utilize them. And I replied back to that EAPs are a wonderful resource, not only for employees for a variety of reasons and variety of levels, but also for leaders to lean on in terms of support and information. Many of them have newsletters and additional resources to be able to help. So when you look at this list in terms of what are employees looking for, there was actually some research that SHRM did. And so one of the things that they talked about was the fact that individuals will actually leave their place of employment for better mental health benefits. So when you look at this list and what people are looking for, not even this list in terms of from CEO Magazine, but in general, what people are looking for from their leaders is better listeners and being more transparent. So when you think about coupling that with wellness and wellness initiatives and mental health, we've said it for so long, and it really doesn't have to be that difficult. People want to be seen and heard.
Yeah.
And
yeah, thank you,
and
Deborah.
that means we've just got to tune in and pay attention to them.
Yes, and I really think that speaks to this belonging bullet point from the CEO Magazine. And thank you for sharing the SHRM research too. Yeah, all human beings have this basic need to feel seen and heard. And when we create a community and an organization where there is a sense of belonging, that we see you as a human and we treat you accordingly, there's an incredible feeling of belonging that happens there. So yes, definitely be thinking of that. Any other thoughts before we move forward on this? Okay, awesome. This is kind of a bit of a disheartening stat, and so maybe you can do the math, and depending on how large your organization is, 1 out of 6 of your employees would say that they are flourishing. And that's unfortunate. And the way that I look at this is there's 2 pieces of the puzzle. And if you'll see our logo for our company, it's 2 overlapping hexagons. And to me, the larger one represents the organization, the structure, the systems, the processes, the job descriptions, all of that that's happening. And then we've got the individual, okay? It fits into that, and there's needs on both sides. So you got to think, like, what would our employees say? Do they feel like they're flourishing at work? And if yes, what can we fix on the organizational side? And how can we support them on the personal, individual side? I should say, if no, why and how can we support them?
Can I ask a question, Danielle?
Absolutely.
With that statement on the earlier slide, do we know what the definition of flourishing really was from the Great Places to Work? I mean, they want education, they're growing, they're happy, they're developing, they're promoting, what does flourishing really mean?
I love that question. I'm happy to share the link. In fact, if you share these slides, the article is hyperlinked to this, so they'll be able to dig into that deeper. It's been a minute since I read this, so I don't have the answer for you right now, but I would assume that it is kind of a holistic look, right, of what's going on organizationally, as well as, you know, am I able to be my full healthy self at work, or is work getting in the way of me taking care of myself? Yeah, that's a great question.
One of the things that I've been reading about for the last year, and I'd be interested for those of you who are in attendance, have you been encountering this in any conversations, or have your supervisors and managers run into this, is that we've got a lot of people who've, quote, come back to work. Yes, we have hybrid. Yes, we have fully remote workplaces. But we've got people who are coming to work every day, working with others, and they're still feeling isolated. They're still feeling alone and lonely. And the answer is, this isn't about having people around you. This goes back to your comment earlier about belonging. And who is it? And if you ask employees, whose responsibility is it to make you feel like you belong? When I work with supervisors, with all the supervisory training that I do, a lot of times supervisors go, well, it's my job. And it's like, yes. And if you ask employees, they believe it's coworkers' responsibility to help them feel like they have a sense of belonging. So that's why I asked about flourishing, because if you don't have some of that and the data is supporting that we're feeling lonely and we're showing up to work, we're still doing good work, but we're not connected. And that, you know, being satisfied is not the same as being engaged. This matters. So it's all like connected. So anyway.
I love the conversation around this, Deborah. And, you know, as each of you are thinking of your teams, your organizations, you might be asking the same question. And the tip that I will give you is ask them, ask your team, ask yourself, ask your coworkers just in your department. You can do this in casual conversations. You can do this in formal meetings. You can do this in anonymous surveys. But if you want to know how your team members are feeling, engage with that, okay? And come up with a way that you think would work for your team to really get that data. We've got a resource we'll share with you a little later here that's a framework that we offer folks to use. It's just a discussion guide that will give you a bit of a starting point on this. But it's so important to know and get a pulse on how is your team feeling, and are there some clues that you can gain from asking to see what more can be done to support them in that flourishing. Love that. Okay, so again, some more stats here. If they are experiencing a high level of well-being in the workplace, they are way more likely to stay and way more likely to recommend, yes, this is a great place to work. They see me, they hear me, they care about me, and come and join us. And that's what we want, right? We want to build organizations that are feeling that way to people. And sometimes I think people are afraid to ask because they're afraid that the answer is no, this is a terrible place to work. So yes, be prepared to take action, right? If you're gonna ask, be prepared to respond. Again, if they don't feel heard and seen, if they feel like, here's another survey that nobody's gonna do anything about, yeah, you're not gonna get great engagement from it. But if you can show them a good show of faith and build that trust of when we ask, we respond, we hear you, we make changes, it can be a great way to build that trust between you and your employee group. We are gonna just keep marching on a little bit here. The whole goal here is if we can create resilient team members, then our organization becomes more stable, right? There's so much change and flux that we deal with on a day-to-day, month-to-month, year-to-year basis in our organizations. Anything that we can do to stabilize what the individuals need, the less turbulence we're going to feel in our organization in terms of that unnecessary turnover. So I want to dive in a little bit more of how can you assess this and what are my recommendations, those 3 pillars that we're here to talk about. So again, grab this QR code. This is the discussion guide that I mentioned. This is just a discussion, simple questions you and your leadership team, or maybe you and your HR team can go through, or just you yourself do kind of your own guided prompts here to check in. What is our perception in our organization of how people are doing with stress levels, work-life harmony, and their personal health and well-being? Really, really highly recommend this, okay? So let's get into these 3 pillars. As I introduce each of these, I want you to be thinking, how is this showing up in my current workplace? How has it shown up in past workplaces? And I would love for us to share ideas and best practices. This is where some really rich conversation can happen. So I'm just going to introduce the way that I think about this. And this comes from, the last 3 years of me working inside of organizations, partnering with decision makers around wellness culture, as we've brought our wellness coaching program into these teams. I've seen so many examples of an organization will be doing 1 or 2 of these really well, but maybe the other 1 or 2 isn't happening. And it's really not until leadership addresses all 3 that we can really see a culture of well-being really starting to pick up and thrive in an organization. So let me tell you a little bit about what I mean by each of these. Permission is simply my way of saying, is this being exemplified? Is it being modeled that we take care of ourselves, that it's okay to have healthy boundaries, that it's good to take vacations and use your PTO and have that work-life harmony, that work-life balance? Are you hearing people give each other cues to say like, hey, we don't need to take our lunch at our desk. Maybe let's go to the cafe across the street. Or, hey, I noticed you were on Teams the entire lunch hour. Like, did you take a break today? Are you doing all right? Things like that. So what are your thoughts on this? How have you seen this show up, maybe for better or for worse, on what are kind of these cultural norms around prioritizing our personal health and well-being out in the day-to-day work? What are your thoughts?
Well, I am happy to come out and say that I'm probably the worst at taking my lunch when I should take my lunch. And this guy has some vacation he needs to take as well. So we both were giving each other like
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Were you giving each other the evil eye?
Yeah, like, well, they're talking to you, and then they were talking to me, so.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other workshop, right? I've got a workshop on burnout prevention, and it's this whole idea of reframing the mindset that taking a break from work is an antithesis to productivity. I offer you, you know, the reframe that rest is productive. Okay, and that is such a mind-blowing concept for many of us. That is not how we were raised as kids, in school, in work. Like, all of our background tells us work, 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 go, go, go. But that is not sustainable. Sooner or later, it will catch up with you. It will catch up with your coworker. So are you holding each other accountable? So I love that you're giving each other that look of like, we need to call ourselves and our coworkers out on this in a positive way, right? So maybe not calling out as much as calling up, calling in and saying, hey, it's okay for you to take a lunch break. What are you going to use your PTO for this month? What is the next vacation you're excited about? And so this is how we start leading by example and having that be a healthy norm that's happening in our workplace, okay? So take some mental notes if this is an area for improvement in your organization. Let's look at the second pillar. This is policies. And this is everybody's favorite part, right? Like, I am up to here in writing SOPs in our company because we are going through a growth spurt at the moment. And, you know, as soon as you want something to scale as you grow, or you want something to be standardized, we've got to document it, right? So it's something, it's a lens to look through when you're looking at your employee handbook. Is there evidence there that your company sees and treats their staff as whole human beings? That's what I would offer you to think about is, do our policies and our practices reflect that value, that we care about you as a whole human? There can be simple little things that you can do to make sure that certain practices are in place. You know, if you've got a dress code written in there and things like that, why not have a policy around it's okay for operations to stop for 1 hour in the middle of the day? What if you normalize that? What if you codified it in your employee handbook? What kind of impact would that have? You know, so that, you know, it doesn't always work, right? We work with a number of nonprofits that provide 24/7, you know, support service to youth and folks experiencing houselessness. So like, you've got to look at what works for your work setting and what you're doing. But I just offer that question of, is there evidence, is there written evidence somewhere that says we care about our people? What are your thoughts? Is there anything creative that you've heard of being done in policies, in kind of these written forms around employee wellness? Like, I love this idea of having a staff well-being policy included in your handbook. What would that look like? Has anybody heard of that before? Kind of new. So this is one to research, and this is actually more common in the UK than the US. So go find some blog posts on that, do some research, and maybe start thinking creatively of what that might look like in your organization. And it can start small and see where it goes from there. All right, let's look at this third pillar. This is the programs piece. When people think about employee wellness, this is usually where our brain goes first. And so that's why I lead with the other two, because as someone that brings wellness programming into companies, I will tell you that we have had a lot of learning over these last few years that not every program is going to flourish. So much does depend on the existing culture that is in the company. So I, would really caution you to look at programs, supports, tools, resources as one piece of the puzzle. It is not a silver bullet. It is not going to solve all your problems. You've got to do your part on the organizational side and the culture building side in those other two pieces that we talked about. So of course, on program side, we want to make sure that we've got a healthy benefit stack. Of course, you're going to have your basics with your health plan, but definitely make sure that you have an EAP in place to make counseling and many other things available to your teams. What I will also say on this is, please communicate, communicate, communicate. Like, have a monthly newsletter where you remind everybody what is available to them, where you're giving them prompts of saying, hey, if you're struggling a little bit, remember you have this many sessions with a therapist through our EAP. Keep pointing them to it, because I can tell you, I've been a health and wellness coach for 8 years. I started in private practice, and every time I was working with someone that really started to hit a wall with depression and anxiety, which is outside of the scope of health coaching, I would ask, does your company have an EAP that you could get some counseling with? And I cannot tell you how many times people are like, whoa, totally forgot about that. I didn't even think of it. It's not on their radar. It's not the first thing they think of. So I'm getting on my soapbox a little bit, but please communicate and re-communicate. You should sound like a broken record, and it's a good thing, okay? That is part of how we send that message. We care about you. We're supporting you with these resources. Please use them. Let us know if you're having challenges accessing them, all of that good stuff. So talk to me about what resources and tools you've seen in your company that have made a difference, or things that you've heard about, or things that you're thinking about. Let's share with each other, because this is where, when you start thinking about this, you don't really know where to start. It's so helpful to hear what other teams are doing. So let's unmute and hear some ideas here. We've talked about the gym. What else do we have? Nothing.
Well,
That's
fortunately, I mean, we're at the Humane Society. We have some partnerships in the community for we get our vehicles worked on, and so Gainers Automotive down here in Vancouver, they offer our employees a 10% discount on their automotive work. So we kind of look at some of those other benefits and perks to be able to extend out to them just through our partnerships.
absolutely. I love that. Yeah, there's so many little creative things that we can do with that. 100%. I've got one of our clients is a technical fabrication company. They do massive structural projects, and so they're concerned about injury prevention and really making sure people can physically show up and do that difficult work. And so we're working on connecting them with a local chiropractor and physical therapy office that can give them special discounts like that too, just for their team, just because there's a partnership that's there. And they're coming in and doing some injury prevention workshops soon. So yeah, getting creative with it, right? Yeah, awesome. Okay, I will say Googling this is a bad idea. Start with what you need, okay? Don't start with what's available. Start with what you need. And a great place to start with that is ask your team. And don't ask them, what would you want if we added a new benefit? Because I can tell you, they won't know, all right? But what they will say is, a great question to ask is, what challenges are you facing that are keeping you from being able to show up your best at work? So that would be a great question to ask in an anonymous survey. If they feel safe to answer that, that would be a gold mine of information. And then if you don't know what to do with that, that's when you give me a call, and we'll just have a conversation of what are all the different things you could do with that, okay? Where does that lead? And it's so fun to look at how many different resources we could bring in that are going to add so much value and be meaningful and incredibly helpful and honestly life-changing, some of the things that can be made available. So I encourage you to research this, see what are the kind of the creative lifestyle perks that maybe you haven't thought of, that maybe you didn't even think are a thing. And then if you do, another way to survey your team is populate a list and then put that into a survey and ask folks, how, check the box on all of these that you would be interested in utilizing if our company were to provide them. that's an excellent way to go about it too. So be careful about asking an open-ended question. Hey, what else could we do to support you? You probably won't get much with that, but if you spoon feed it to them, like, here's 10 things that we could do or that we're considering, but we want to know what would be most meaningful to you, and then see what you get on those results. All right, hopefully that is striking some chords and getting some good ideas flowing. Again, the goal is a resilient workforce so that we have this resilient organization. That is the goal. All right. So I want you to start thinking about, and I know Deborah has some slides on this too, of like, so what? What have we covered today? We've said, you know, if we're not already tracking turnover, let's make sure that we're doing that. Let's get a discussion happening at the very least among your leadership team of how do we think our folks are feeling, stress level, overall health and wellness, like where are we at and where could we start to make some improvements? I'll pause there and just give you some encouragement. It is okay if things are not on point yet. Everything is going to be in process, and that is all right. What really matters is that, again, your team is feeling heard and cared for, and that if you are showing that you are taking even incremental action, that is going to build that trust, and they're going to sense that care and that concern. So then looking at those 3 pillars that you can examine, where could we improve on our permission, kind of those cultural norms, leading by example, what policies could we tweak and start to have some language and evidence around our thinking on this, and then exploring specific programs, resources, benefits that could speak volumes to your team. All right, so couple things for you. There's that QR code again for that discussion guide. And we do 45-minute free strategy sessions. And I will tell you, I just get a kick out of helping folks with this, whether it leads to using our services or not. This is like no strings attached. Let me just help you think through this and sort through what your next steps might be. I love helping organizations take those steps. So definitely snag a screenshot of that if those are things that you think would help you, and would love to connect with you. Find me on LinkedIn. I love connecting with HR folks because I learned so much from you all the time, and appreciate you letting me spend some time with you today. I can turn the screens back over to you if you would like, Deborah, or I can keep sharing and clicking through these.
Yeah, that's great. Danielle, thank you very much. And this is a time where we've got some time for questions for you all, because as Danielle even shared with you, and I'm sharing with you here, based on conversation, as an individual, what might you start working on? As an HR department, what caught your attention that might be something to start taking some baby steps on? I even put a notation in the chat box about this. There's probably lots of things you can do. Start small, make progress, have some wins, have some success, because that's motivational, that's encouraging, that's keeps people going, and that gets bigger wins. So start small, because it with some of what Danielle was sharing with you, this is also keeping in alignment with the organization, your mission and vision, things that you can do, budgetary, time, space. Because if it's like too big, too hairy, you might not be able to complete it, or you might not be able to get there, or it was just too big of a bite at this time. So be thoughtful about some of those things, because the answer is we're going for, and I really value, Danielle, your comment about remembering the humans. Technology has made hiring so much easier with our applicant tracking systems. And I think we're sort of forgetting people are humans and we're overlooking some things. Yes, we have policies and procedures, and not all policies were written for everybody. Yes, it's fair and consistent. And yet, let's please remember we have humans on our staff. And what does that look like? And what does that sound like? So who can you share this information with? And please know that I'm happy to send out the slides to all of you who are in attendance today. And we do send out an email post program that will have a link to the recording, so you can watch again. If you couldn't catch it all the first time, you can watch Danielle again and listen, but you can share it with your coworkers and have them take a listen, give them the link. And maybe this is a team discussion. Maybe this is part of a team or part of an initiative that you're working on, and you can have others participate, let alone thinking about some of those survey questions. So questions that you might have of each other, for Danielle, for myself, because Jennifer, I'm glad to hear that you're working on refining and promoting the recognition of staff. That's huge. And truly find out what recognition means, what they would like. I still remember a person who came to one of my supervisory programs, and one of her long-term employees, all he wanted was a thermos, one of those oversized thermoses with his name engraved on it. That's all he wanted. It was about $75 or less at that time. And the company kept saying, here's your big catalog. Pick something out of this framework of these pages based on your 30 years with the organization. And all he'd wanted for the last 5 years was that thermos with his name on it. And that wasn't in the pages. That's all that mattered to him based on the body of work out in the field. And the supervisor said, but my boss kept telling me, show him the catalog, show him the catalog. And I said, you know what? Here's the deal. If and it were me, I'd buck the system. I'd spend my own money and I'd get him that darn thermos. But that's me. And she goes, I really want to do that. And I've been wanting to do that. And I said, you decide. But again, listen to your employee, right? We talk about retention. We don't need turnover. We don't need the hassle of trying to find people when you got someone great who that's all they're asking for. The cost of turnover was what again for a $75 thermos? Even if it was more than that, the investment was worth it. So go for it, Jennifer.
Jennifer was showing us on her screen that she's got does it have your name on it? Not your name, but.
It has our company branding on it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, beautiful.
There you go.
It's
right?
the little things. I love that. Ashley came on video. Do you have some thoughts to share, Ashley, or some questions?
We're actually working on trying to figure out how people want to be recognized, because we have some folks who want the public, the Facebook, like I did this thing and it was awesome. And then I have the other folks that are like, it's my job. I just do, where it's total trying to figure out the way that impacts them is not going to be the same as across the board. So trying to recognize them all in the individual way they want. Versus pick out something from these pages.
That is really cool, Ashley. I appreciate you bringing that up. Yeah, that's definitely not the first time I've heard of companies doing that. And so I applaud you for being willing to individualize that recognition. Yeah, and I'm very familiar with the culture in kind of the first responder, military, and we see that a lot in the blue collar workspaces that we support too, of just like, it's just my job. Like, leave me alone. Like, I'm just, they may not say that they want or need the recognition. And so that could simply be something that is more private and personal, of just like, hey, you really showed up today. Or, hey, we recognize that was really hard. Thank you for doing your job so well, and they may not want the public recognition, but just like having that, is that a written note or is that an email or a message from their direct supervisor? It's like, hey, I saw you really showed up today. Like that it's like, oh, okay. Whoa, they're not taking me for granted. That's powerful. That's really cool. Any other thoughts or questions? We've got about 2 minutes till the top of the hour. It's been so fun to hang out with you guys today. All right. Should we wrap it up, Deborah?
We sure can.
All right.
Absolutely.
We've got some things here to share.
Yes, so here's, first of all, thank you all for coming. I so appreciate it very much. Glad that you're able to join us. Here's what's coming up in terms of upcoming programming. Next month, we're going to talk a little bit about pay transparency and some of the challenges. And maybe not all of our states are required to do this yet. However, just you wait. It's going to be coming for the state of Oregon, but maybe your other states that you're occupied in are doing this. So want to give you some additional information and thoughts about that. So let's talk about that. I did have, so on April 2nd, and this is the difference between your version and my version, I actually updated this on April 2nd. My gal who is going to join us for April 2nd is not going to be here at that time. So that is a to be determined now. I just found out yesterday. And then on May 7th, we are going to have mental health awareness, the role of EAPs from that standpoint. So we were just kind of talking a little bit about that. We will have Michelle join us from Canopy. So please join us on that day. So with that said, again, thank you for joining us. Glad you were here. Should you have additional questions, again, my name is Deborah Jeffries. I'm happy to assist in some fashion or another. And again, we're welcome other content ideas now, especially for April 2nd, if you've got topics that you would like to hear about. Otherwise, I'm glad you were able to join us. And again, if this was your first time, first Wednesday of every month, noontime, Pacific time is when we get together. And again, we're glad that we were able to have you join us. And Danielle, thank you so very much for your generosity of spending your time and your expertise with us. I downloaded that link already. That's a nice worksheet. That's some good information here, folks. So if you haven't had a chance to do that, I strongly encourage you to do so.
Excellent. Excellent.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much. I'll be the last one in the room if anybody has additional questions. Otherwise, take care. Have a wonderful Wednesday. And in advance, happy Valentine's Day as well. Take care.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You betcha.
Excellent. Deborah, this was so fun. Thank you for having me. Appreciate you.
You bet.
Good luck with all of your adventures. And maybe I'll send you some info on that virtual assistant stuff. I do think that you could do all of those things with some help. So I'll send it your way.
Fabulous.
Awesome.
Thank you so
Take
much.
care.
I appreciate it. You
Talk
too.
soon.
Bye-bye.